Some highlights from our independent evaluation of Indus Action's contributions to systemic change over the last 10 years. The purpose of the evaluation was to arrive at lessons both for Indus Action and for other stakeholders, identify both lessons that can be replicated and those that shouldn't, and to inform the way forward for Indus Action. We evaluated Indus Action's work to achieve social protection through 3 legislations. Section 12(1)(c) of the Right to Education Act, the Building and Other Construction Workers Act, and the National Food Security Act. Our methodology drew on both evidence and a rigorous reflection process. So the reflection process consisted of 5 focus groups on different themes. As you can see here, we covered all the stages of Indus Action's work, but we focused more on the work with state governments and with the Partner Entrepreneur Network, as that's been the more recent work. And accordingly, our key informant interviews were also with the government and with CSO partners rather than with citizens. So we are very grateful to the government officials who made time, despite their busy schedules, to participate in the interviews. However, stakeholders who are dissatisfied with the intervention or did not benefit from it were not available for this study. And this is a limitation that we see with other evaluations as well. However, several measures were implemented to mitigate the risk of bias due to this limitation, and these are described in the report. You can see the sample composition for the study here. I'm not going to spend time on this because this is also available in the report. So many of you would be familiar with Section 12(1)(c) of the RTE Act. From our analysis of 8 MOUs that Indus Action had signed with states, we found a high degree of consistency in their interventions across states and over time. State-level officials highly valued Indus Action's online MIS, and the reasons cited were that it increased transparency and applications, saved time, and made monitoring easier. However, no state-level officials had top-of-the-mind recall of Indus Action's grievance redressal operations. And while we found that some block and district-level officials were more aware of these operations, there is a need to communicate the value proposition of the organization's engagement across multiple levels of the state. The outcomes for children were mixed across the 5 states where baseline data was available. So where Indus Action had worked closely with states, there was a substantial increase in the number of admissions. But in 2 of the 5 states, there was a decline in admissions during the years of Indus Action's intervention. But the organization did not initiate online processes in these states. Going from admissions to retention, Indus Action's own surveys indicate that the retention rate is approximately 88% over a 1-year period. And while this is positive, it's important to measure whether longer-term retention rates are as high. Coming to the BOCW Act, the data shows that there have been substantial improvements in the implementation of this Act in both Chhattisgarh and Delhi between 2021-22 and 2022-23. However, Indus Action's contributions were different in Chhattisgarh and Delhi, and they were difficult to isolate from those of other stakeholders. Nevertheless, the short-term increase in successful claims by construction workers demonstrates what is possible when there is pressure from the ministry, action by the state government, and the intervention of CSOs and unions. On the right to food security, Indus Action has worked on PMMVY in Uttar Pradesh and has worked on other activities related to food security in Telangana and Delhi. However, those were not covered in the scope of the report. The results for Uttar Pradesh are still being evaluated and will be shared in the final report, which I encourage all of you to read. So I'd like to end with some reflections from where kind of I stand as the lead evaluator for this study. So firstly, this evaluation underscored the importance of internal documentation of an organization's work as a source of data that can be triangulated with other independent sources. Despite the relative nascency of Indus Action's work on both livelihood and food security, the former was easier to evaluate because it was documented to a much greater extent than the latter. The second reflection was that both the frequent transfer of government officials and turnover within Indus Action made it difficult to rely solely on individual recall to gather evidence for this evaluation. However, focus groups helped to build collective recall of specific phases in the organization's history and triggered many of the insights in the report on lessons learned. Finally, I'm indebted to all of you who provided feedback on the report. And in the last 2 weeks, we will be working to incorporate as much of that feedback as possible through minor edits to the version that you already have access to. Thank you.
Thank you, Devyani. A very good afternoon to everyone present. I'm Madhuri Dhuriwal, Associate Director with Indus Action. It's lovely to see you all here today, and I hope that all of the sessions that you've attended have been thought-provoking. And you all can please find seats. Everyone who's standing at the back, please find seats here, and we'll continue. Thank you. You've already heard from Devyani right now about the areas in which we work and the impact that we've created. I want to take you all through a very short journey of these 10 years of Indus Action from Indus Action's lens. And I've been privileged to be part of this journey for over 5 years now. And so hope to take you all through that with just a glimpse of what our life as Indus Action actioners has been. Born as a master's thesis, 2013 was Indus Action's genesis. These early right to education years were spent in Delhi to understand what was going on the ground, really. एक कैंपेन मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम की हमने की शुरुआत, शिक्षा सहयोगी से यही हुई मुलाकात.
I think when I think of the early years, I think of them as a beautiful balance between a lot of purpose, a lot of struggles, which Tarun kind of undermined when he spoke in the beginning. But there were a lot of struggles, but all of that with a lot of joy. I think if I think of a typical day, it would not be unusual for the same team member to meet an education minister in the morning, attend 10 to 15 helpline calls to really understand what was going on with the families who wanted their children admitted, go to gender resource centers, that's where the families would come to get these certificates, and really see the lives of the communities we were serving, and end the day at the auntie, like having a lot of chai in the tiny office that a lot of people spoke about. So yeah, I would just say it was such a joyful time filled with struggles and a lot of purpose.
Thank you. We spread our wings to Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, Maharashtra, and UP, determined to ensure at scale equality and equity. समझा हमने IS ऑफिसर्स की दुविधा को, एड-MIS ने हल की बहुत सी मुश्किलों को. ट्राइबल, रूरल, रिच, पुअर, एज, जेंडर, कास्ट, oh dear. From filling forms to getting documents approved, we've knocked at every door. Ronak?
When the date of the launch was suddenly pushed by a collector in a specific state. After successfully implementing right to education in Gujarat for a couple of years, it was time to move forward and increase the spectrum to support other members of the family, including like aspects of food security at that point in time. So with research support from Tara Trust, we were able to move towards understanding the implementation of PMMVY in Gujarat and Rajasthan, And the study then eventually led us to expanding PMMVY operations across several states in India.
And then we began to deeply question not just our purpose for existence, but also our ambition. आखिर हम दूसरों से अलग कैसे, हम इस सिस्टम में फिट कैसे, कैसे हम विभिन्न संस्थाओं और विचारों को जोड़ें, कैसे नई तकनीक से रिश्ता जोड़ें. Reducing the barriers of time, money, and access at scale, technology products for power is where we've now begun to learn and fail. Kuldeep?
Yeah, so Indus Action and Tarun have partnered with us multiple times. So initially it was emotional partnership, just sharing the labor of starting an organization together. But Tarun always saw partnership beyond that. And one such example was when we worked with a member of parliament in Bengal and how he, tried to merge the mission of Reap Benefit and Indus Action and present it as one. So that's how we partnered in multiple ways together.
Thank you. The citizen is at the center of everything we do. Stepping back to step forward makes us tighter as a crew. We're guided by a wonderful board, and our funders and donors have ensured that we've soared. Samaj Samuham keeps us grounded as we scale. Working with the government has given us the appetite to grow and fail. Today, you'll find in every actioner's DNA the do-tank bias that is the Indus Action way. We look forward to growing with all of you in the decade to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devyani and Madhuri. I have actually co-witnessed so much of what was presented here, so I'm really nostalgic and very proud at the same time. We now want to move on to the next bit, and for that I would want to invite Tarun to please come on stage.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks Kritika. Thank you Madhuri for a quick trip down the memory lane. Can I also invite on stage our partners who spent the last 2 days in a very intense workshop on what we're going to announce now. Forget about the term, so we'll explain it over the next couple of, there are many, we spent 2 days just unpacking the 3 alphabets. So if I can request Vijay, Archana, Kirtana, Archana, sorry, I mentioned Archana once again. Everybody who has participated in the workshop over the last couple, Murugan is here, Simi please, Kuldeep. Over the last almost 9 to 12 months, through a process that started with Agami's search for Shamnath Bashir Agami Prize, where they scouted all the organizations working on schemes and entitlements. And so that got a lot of us together into a room. Gramani is here, Hagdarshak, I don't know if Savita is here. Okay. So Savita from Hagdarshak and Aniket were here as well. And many other organizations. Jawabdehi Andolan, we were all in the same room and we wondered what it would take for us to actually imagine a different architecture and different delivery models for schemes and entitlements. That led us to online dispute resolution forum. So where once again we had a chance to workshop. That led us to Ashoka rooms in June. So that finally got us some momentum to imagine what the collective could look like if we sat down together for a couple of days. And over the last couple of months, there have been more than 100 conversations that everybody's contributed to in one-on-one and small group formats. And over the last 2 days, we went through a process to unpack what is needed to reform the schemes and entitlement systems. So I will leave it there for now. I will request Vijay to explain what we went through over the last 2 days.
Hi, everybody, and wonderful to be part of this momentous occasion for Indus Action, and in fact, very inspiring and honored to be part of this collective, the collaborative. Again, as Tarun rightly said, Agami did the groundwork of getting all of us together as part of the earlier interventions. But I think post that, when it started off with a small workshop, a sort of a mini workshop at the ODR event, and that then subsequently went on to follow through conversations on how do we really make this work? How do we really act upon many of the things that we always talk as part of these workshops? But how do we really bring about a shape to this whole narrative or conversation? So I think from the perspective of the last 2 days, the efforts that were put in terms of a very well structured conversation space where importantly we were able to unbundle the various aspects of the whole benefits access journey, right? So looking at it from a citizen perspective, from a system perspective as well, and how do we look at the future in terms of how does this sort of build out as an effective, inclusive medium where we can ensure access and delivery of schemes to the citizens, right? So it takes into consideration the technology as a critical component, but also a more humanistic aspect of technology, right? How do we ensure that technology is more humane? How do we ensure look at aspects of exclusion errors and as part of the whole design process, right? So I think a lot of these elements were deliberated, discussed in detail as part of many sessions that spanned the 2 days, and with very critical and important stakeholders that were part of these conversations. So super excited, super glad, and really looking forward to with a lot of hope in terms of how we can collaboratively and collectively really work towards addressing this very, very large and mammoth problem, right? So one individual, one organization cannot really make the difference, but it's the power of the collective, the collaborative that really makes the difference. And super glad to be part of this inspiring collective. Thanks to Tarun and the entire Indus Action team and to Team Agami for making this happen. Thank you so much.
As Vijay rightly mentioned, right, this is not something one organization or one individual can do. And Dr. Pramod reminded us of the scale of what we are trying to achieve, right? 1 billion people. And what that takes is organizations on the stage, civil society organizations beyond, government, market, everything coming together to make this happen for our citizens. So over the course of the last 2 days, we also had members from the NEGD be a part of this. And we came to a point where we agreed that this is not one organization's or one entity's work, but this is our work that is coming together right now. And what we are going to try and do is focus on 2 broad use cases to kickstart this work. So last 2 days have also been a lot about the prototyping around this. So one of the first use cases that we're picking up is around targeted basic income for women. You have heard questions and challenges around implementing targeted basic income for women in the panel this morning. But it lends itself to the complexity that we need to understand to build that sort of a schema while also offering high volume of impact with low friction in terms of government will. So we are looking to explore with states that are looking at piloting targeted basic income for women and seeing how best we can lend our work around the UBI to kind of support that implementation and truly understand what it means for this to come together. I'm going to invite Anand to talk about the next use case, which is around central schemes.
I think the approach for the central schemes was to pick the top 15, the most high valued, and there was always a heated debate around which top 15 should we pick and what should be the criteria. And I think after about hours of heated debate, one criteria that really helped everybody converge was that we should pick debates that help us reach the last mile and include the last mile. And that's how we are going to take it forward. A lot of technicalities to it, but I'll leave that to the rest of the team. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Anand. Would also like to invite Murugan, who's here from the Vedis Foundation. While all of us, Agami did a fantastic job of bringing all of us together. I think having organizations like Vedis anchor this sort of a collaborative is incredibly helpful. So inviting Murugan to share his thoughts as well.
You seem to have a habit of putting people in the spot. By no means that Medis is anchoring this. We're just another member of this coalition. If anyone should anchor this, it is someone who is here in spirit, which is NEGD, Amit, and team. So we're hoping to push them to anchor this on behalf of this coalition. So I think that's for any philanthropic or foundation. I think this is an area of deep interest because it is the biggest leverage investment that philanthropy can make. Reduce leakage, improve efficiency, all the numbers that we've talked about over the last 2-3 days. So I think it's not just us, but there's MSDF in the room who's very keen and very interested in this space as well. So just another member of the team, hopefully anchored by a much stronger member who will help us move this along and make quick progress. I think the focus should be on speed and design. The 1:10:100 that DJ talked about this morning is a good approach. We quickly get to the 1 and the 10, and then but also engineer for the 100, which is what the technology side of it. So I'm really looking forward to continuing on this journey. Thank you.
So we also spent a lot of heated debates on what you should stand for. So between unified and universal and uniform. So we kind of understand, and of course benefits and entitlements. And is this interface or is it an ecosystem that we're trying to build? So every alphabet went through the scanner. So obviously, if you put 35 really passionate, committed people together in a room, locked in for 2 days. So what we do have is, like everybody shared, the intent to take this collective together. Just to give you a visual of how this possibly could look like with the two use cases that Archana and Anand described at a state level flagship scheme or with central flagship schemes. We have a small video to visualize the citizen's journey if this were to come into effect in its kind of full promise.
Kavita is a 21-year-old pregnant baby. She feels hopeful and wants to provide the best education for her child. With little support and precarious nature of her work, she worries about the savings, health, and employment of her. The government scheme promises rupees 30,000 in welfare entitlement to pregnant babies like her who have a legal family. Excited, Kavita joins Asha on a trip to the legal office to get her legal family. However, they encounter a maze of paperwork and documents that Kavita lacks. She would also have to take time off work to settle the documents, which means lost wages. Additionally, all the documents would end up overlaying scheme benefits, with no guarantee that she will get the benefits. Disappointingly, she drops the book. Then one day, Kavita learns about a chatbot or follow-up designated to help those seeking access to welfare schemes to Asha, who's a motivated NGO worker who is visiting her colleagues. From the concept of her own home, she starts the process. She didn't have to use engagement or wrestle with bureaucracy inside with a chatbot or follower or Asha support. Kavita can track her application status. When there's a problem, there's a helpline she can call, connecting her with a real person then. All this without stepping foot outside the door. A glimmer of hope. India aims to simplify access to India's 500 plus anti-poverty schemes with a citizen-centered approach. Our goal is to revolutionize welfare access and empower individuals with great people deciding for it.
Putting each other on spot. This is what we also enjoyed in the last few days. So, just to break this down on what the interface is trying to achieve, at least in the first phase, we discussed like three possible themes. So the first one is right now, like in any given state, you have a portfolio of almost 500 plus schemes or entitlements. So trying to simplify the definition of schemes, which then lead to easy discoverability, is one kind of theme of work. Right now, a typical scheme would have 5 to 6 eligibility criteria, and so you're imagining a system of 500 by 5 that somebody has to maze through and kind of try and reach the benefit that they want. So trying to simplify the definitional aspects of each and every scheme so that it is easily traceable and in a machine readable format. So that's one theme of work. The second theme of work is what Anand and Vijay emphasized on, is reducing the documentation load and improving the citizen access journey. To one of the way Amit, in fact, from NEGD mentioned this. Can we, instead of thinking about scheme discovery from the perspective of the citizen, can the scheme that is the government representing the scheme owner discover the citizen instead of the citizen having to discover the scheme? So the second theme is that. So how do we actually make the process of discovery to application of a scheme driven largely from owned by the state rather than the burden of proof and the trust having to be driven by the citizen? The third is how do we activate actually a last mile ecosystem? Here you saw a motivated NGO worker, but we also have 5 lakh citizen service centers across the country. We also have cyber cafes. We have private service providers as well. How do we enable an ecosystem of service providers? And this speaks to Dr. Pramod Verma's point as well. So there are enough motivated last mile actors. So how do you provide them the tools and the enabling interface for them to match kind of their energies to kind of the need to the most vulnerable citizens who are trying to receive these entitlements and benefits? So these are the 3 broad themes. And the idea is to apply these themes on the 2 use cases, the central schemes, the top 15 ones, and particularly the state flagship scheme on basic income for women. That's what we want to collectively share back, and I'll ask Rachna to close.
So, over the course of the next 3 months, we'll be doubling down on these 2 particular use cases. So, we will be reaching out to folks, and if you particularly are interested, so please reach out to Tarun, Kirtana, myself, Vijay, and together we're going to try and see how far we can take this idea to fruition. But with that, right. With that, we would like to conclude the announcement of the Universal Benefits Interface work that we as a collaborative are coming together for. Right. I went away rather quickly. I'm going to take this opportunity to thank a whole bunch of folks who have contributed to our journey this far. I want all of us to take a few moments to just rest in the possibility that this room holds. I want to offer a most sincere gratitude to all the community members, families, children, champions, now community leaders, and all of our Samaj. We stand on the shoulders of those who have walked this path for justice and inclusion before us. Our ambassadors, each of you in this room and outside, I'm sure sees a fingerprint of your work and your impact on how Indus Action stands today. Thank you for bringing us this far and continuing to support us. We see that with Kritika, our MC. So thank you, Kritika. To all of our international participants, to be able to battle jet lag, the absolute sensory overload, such a different context, and for you to show up, challenge, push us in these conversations. Thank you so much. To our government partners who teach us to be humble in our pursuit of systems change. Our ecosystem partners, the list is so long. We put up a few on the standees outside, we have some on our website, but truly so many ecosystem partners who are in this room and who are not in this room, because of whom our efforts are amplified, and we're eternally grateful. Our board members for their guidance and critical friendship. You inspire us to be and do better. Our advisory council members for grounding us in zonal perspectives and guiding our teams in the day-to-day. Our donors. I've been in Indus Action for only a year, and of course I've watched the journey from afar, but I'm amazed by the donor-donee relationship in Indus Action. Each one of our donors go beyond the traditionally defined role, coach us, teach us, and hold us to such a high bar. Accountability to them often helps us get so much sharper. Our supporters, who support us not just in people development, but also coaching, communications, network building, continuing to broaden our horizons. Our team. You show up each and every day committed to this mission. Your work shapes who we are. I hope you look around the room and feel good about yourselves, and also feel inspired by the trust everyone places in our last 10 years and for us to take this forward. Our coalition members who are here on stage, many of whom weren't as well, for shaping our coming decade and helping us build forward. IIT Delhi for this amazing venue, the staff for their hospitality, the Ritambara team who beautifully facilitated the 2 days together for the coalition to help us arrive at some of these conversations. Lastly, but I definitely don't think it's the least, Tarun, for getting us all started. I think I cannot say this enough. Each one of us in this room has a connection to Tarun that we're grateful for. And thank you for starting us off on this journey. And together we will build. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Archana.
So the joke in the morning was we have Monday morning 8 a.m. calls, so which Anurag has been subjected to, which is why he now works in the government, where things are much easier. So he's put me on the spot. So we did this poem in the morning, and it kind of, and I have to acknowledge, I got this from Himakshi. Otherwise, I wouldn't be going back home. Yeah, this really speaks to how we try to show up as actioners at Indus Action. So, we had this, I shared this back as possibly the best way to condense our memory of, what happened in the last 10 years. Madhuri made a beautiful visual journey of the last 10 years. So, yeah, we'll just wrap up and, break for lunch with the poem. It all matters that someone turns out the lamp, picks up the windblown wrapper, says hello to the invalid, pays at the unattended lot,
Listens to the repeated tale, folds the abandoned laundry, plays the game fairly, tells the story honestly, acknowledges help,
gives credit, says goodnight, resists temptation, wipes the counter, waits at the yellow, makes the bed, tips the maid, remembers the illness, congratulates the victor, accepts the consequences,
takes a stand, steps up, offers a hand, goes first, goes last, chooses the small portion, teaches the child, tends to the dying, comforts the grieving,
removes the splinter, wipes the tear, directs the loss, touches the lonely, is the whole thing. From We Are Called to Raise, a novel by Laura McBride, Simon, and Schuster. I hope we are all called to raise, and thank you for showing up for us today. Yeah.